Hello everyone, welcome back to In Depth with Jodie Lobana. Today we have Dr. Das with us and we are going to cover topic marriage. Marriage based on spiritual perspective, especially the perspective of Saint Kabir. Dr. Das is an eminent scholar in Saint Kabir's teachings. He has written many books and now we've brought him in to talk about what does Saint Kabir ask us to do with regards to marriage. First off, Dr. Das, the question that I have for you is, does Saint Kabir support marriage, or does he want people to stay single and just pursue spirituality?
No, he was in favor of marriage. And he wrote in what is it, Purnima Vrat Katha, the story of the fast that people observe at the full moon. And in that, he stated that a wife and a husband together form a unit.
Sure.
That half of the husband is, let's say, belong to the wife.
Sure.
And half of the wife belongs in the husband.
Sure.
So he used the term, which has been used before, Ardhangi and Ardhangini,
Sure.
for the husband and wife. Ardha means half.
Sure.
So half of her is in him and half of him is in her.
Sure.
And biologically, I mean, this makes sense.
Yeah.
All males have certain amount of female hormones in them,
Sure.
and all females have certain amount of male hormones in them.
Yes.
So from that point of view, it makes sense that they're not entirely separate entities. In bodies they are,
Yeah.
but Kabir Sahib said, a soul, they're one.
But they could also be, when you said that a human entity, male or female, has both male hormone as well as female hormones in there.
Yeah.
So one could say that they're self-sufficient within themselves.
Yes, but somehow God, or let's say nature, didn't arrange it that way that it's fully functional, reproductive, everything else. That in all of nature, there are two genders, not only in human beings, but in animals and plants, insects. They're always male and female. And I don't know the secret of God, why he made gender. Sometimes I wonder, but it appears necessary for reproductive purposes that there's separation of the genders. And only God knows that, because according to the genetics,
Yes.
the male has X and Y chromosomes, and
Yes.
female has X and X chromosomes.
Yes.
When an X chromosome from the male joins with an X of the female, you get a girl child.
Yes.
If the Y chromosome of the male joins the X chromosome of the female,
Yes.
you get a boy child.
Here's the thing, sorry to interrupt Dr. Das, but one thing, it used to be in traditional, like developing countries, long time ago, especially in India, that if multiple girls are born to a female, they would, the family would say it's the female's fault. But really, as you just described, it's the male chromosome that decides whether it's going to be a male child or a female child, right?
That is exactly correct.
Yeah.
And people who have this idea, just because the lady produced girl child,
Yeah.
it's the lady's fault.
Yeah.
It's not. Absolutely nothing to do with the lady.
Yes.
It has 100% to do with the male,
Yes.
because he has X and Y chromosome.
Yes.
His Y chromosome will make a male, his X chromosome will make a female.
Yes.
The
Yes.
lady has X and X.
Hmm.
It's not her problem
It's
at all.
it's not her
But people
fault.
do not understand it, and they
Yes.
blame the lady,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Yes. We digress, but I just since you brought up the chromosomes, and I know that especially in India there was a tradition where if a lady would bring a lot of female or girl children, then uh, she was looked down upon, because Indian subcontinent people wanted more of male child. But going back to the topic of marriage, I think the whole concept of marriage the way you described it is a bit different. Actually, you talked about a male and a female, which can even be, in Western terms, could be girlfriend, boyfriend living together. It's not the contract of marriage per se, because animals don't do contracts. What do you say about that? If the common law partnership is perhaps as good as a marriage, right?
Well, in terms of the biology, they're both equal.
Yeah,
In terms of commitment, they're both equal.
sure,
But in terms of law, they're not equal.
sure.
The law requires a contract, as you mentioned,
Hmm.
and that contract gives legitimacy to
Hmm.
the marriage.
Hmm.
And unless that contract is there, some people, especially religious people,
Hmm.
will say it's a sinful union. I mean, there's nothing holy about it,
Yeah,
and therefore they condemn common law.
yeah,
But the law recognizes that common law people, having lived so many years, is like a contract,
yes,
because they have committed themselves for a number of years.
yes.
And
So in essence, I guess beyond the religion, I'm sure you are of the belief that with or without contract, if two people commit to each other, that's a holy togetherness. Like there's nothing unholy about that.
that there's nothing unholy,
Yeah,
because as you mentioned, animals, etc., don't have contracts.
yeah,
Now, if you think of God making male and female and putting them on the earth, God didn't make a law that there has to be a marriage, because it's the religion that made that law of marriage.
sure.
Or maybe we can say the politics of the government.
Yeah,
But naturally, there's no contract needed as long as there's a commitment.
commitment. Yes.
And that commitment has to be every bit as sincere
Yes.
as if you have signed a contract.
Yes.
Now we know in life 50% of contractual marriages end in divorce. So that contract loses its meaning.
Yes.
Whereas people live in common law
Mm.
will live all their life
Yes.
like that.
So it's love and the commitment that comes from it. It's more important than the contract itself.
I would say, from my personal point of view,
Yeah.
that will be correct,
Yeah.
because two people, two hearts, deciding to spend their life together fulfills the biological, it fulfills the spiritual, let's say, requirements.
Sure.
The contract itself doesn't necessarily do that. It only makes it recognizable that other people can say, yes, they're married,
Sure.
and it makes it legal.
Sure. So in essence, I guess you're saying that from the perspective of Saint Kabir, from the perspective of spiritual perspective, non-religious perspective, that contract perhaps is not required, but commitment is required. Commitment is required to have that holiness in the bonding, and especially for raising of children, so that children have both mom and dad available to them as they're raised.
That is true, because in the final analysis, you're doing this before God, your own commitment.
Sure.
God did not devise a contract, but He did devise commitment,
Sure.
two genders getting together.
Yes.
That is divine.
Yeah.
But getting together and having to sign a contract, the contract doesn't make it divine. The contract makes it legal.
Sure.
I think that's
So here's as you've said, that significant percentage of marriages end up in divorce, especially in North America and European societies. What would it's I guess Kabir Pant or Saint, I don't know, at Saint Kabir's time probably there were not divorces, but what would be your own personal opinion then on divorces?
Personally, I feel divorces are not good because it means that two people are no longer able to communicate and get along with one another. They drifted apart.
Sure.
This means that physically they're drifting apart, emotionally and mentally. And this drifting apart begins to create a kind of a spiritual separation also.
Sure.
And yet, divinely speaking, or let's say from spiritual point of view, you cannot separate souls.
Yes.
They must separate the bodies,
Mm.
but the souls don't separate.
Yes.
So Kabir Sahib will say that, and I will say personally, that divorces are bad because it creates divisions, dissension, breaking of a family, suffering of children. There are many negativities that come into play.
But here's the question though, like let's say people, people change. As people grow, they change. And different individuals have different personality types. It's possible that especially through arranged marriage, somebody got married to someone that their personality type was substantially different from their own personality type. And hence there was causing tension all the time, where one person wanted to be always out and about. They were outgoing type of person. Other person always wanted to stay at home. So now the outgoing person always was feeling constrained in the household because they were outgoing and they wanted to have the freedom to go out and see the world. So in that case, there was a mismatch that happened through the arranged marriage system. So what would you say to that? Would you still call that divorce bad, or would you say, you know what, there are some instances where both parties, not out of negativity per se, but just because of differences that are just irreconcilable, it's just two different personality types, that it's okay to divorce?
Yes, what you're saying is also correct in practical life. Because what happens in the example you're giving, people change, their personality conflicts. But what do? Why does that occur? It's because they do not see their true nature.
Yes.
You know, what is the spirit in the husband and wife? That spirit is the same. It's uniting. It is loving. But when the ego comes in, and your own selfish needs and desires and wants come in, and you do not see the other person's point of view, it creates a dichotomy. And that brings about a situation where a divorce becomes necessary. And if they cannot be reconciled, then I suppose a divorce becomes essential. And even in the court, I mean, a couple approaching the court for a divorce,
Yes.
the court, lawyers, whatever, they will try to say, take a period of time and see if you can reconcile.
Yes.
Because there's goodness in reconciliation.
Yes.
But then people have to be willing to give and take, be flexible.
Yes.
But one maintaining rigidity and the other rigidity, and they don't want to compromise, then they're losing their spiritual value.
Yes.
Of compromise, of seeing one another, loving one another,
Yes.
see one another as spiritual beings.
Yes. See, that's the thing. Once everybody reaches to the point where they're both spiritual beings and they can recognize that it's part of the evolution process, then it's easier to even stay together. Because if you're a spiritual being, then even if the person that wants to stay at home, they wouldn't want to hold their partner to stay at home. They'll let the other spiritual being go around in the world and enjoy the world. And they'll say, you know what, I am their spiritual partner, and one of my duty as a spiritual partner is to let the other person grow in their path, and wherever that growth comes from. So if both parties are that evolved, then divorces would not happen anymore.
Yeah.
But until that time, where people are not as evolved yet. I think it's just that when the personalities are such at a different place, then sometimes it's become harder to stay together because just on a day-to-day basis, it's just not reconcilable.
Yes, that's true. You know, there's a saying that I love you so much that I set you free.
Yes, yes,
That is type of freedom.
yeah,
And that comes about when there's mutual trust
yes,
and mutual understanding and good communication.
yes,
And then if one wants to do something different and the other one doesn't, give the freedom to do it as long as there's fidelity,
yes,
there's trust, and
yes,
there's love,
yes.
good communication. Then this is possible.
Definitely, definitely. So, my dear audience, today you heard the views of Dr. Das, President of Kabir Association of Canada, and also perspectives from Saint Kabir's perspective on marriage that he shared early on. Um, in the next episode, we'll pick up another topic. We will be covering topics on death as well as meditation with Dr. Das. So please tune back in. Until next time, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thanks, Dr. Das, as well.